Welcome to this week's episode of Cameron's Conversations. Indeed, it's not really a conversation, it's just me today, but something that is very front of mind because I've been out for a nice sunny walk, had a little bit of caffeine to start the day. I'm not a big coffee drinker, so when I do have a little bit of caffeine, I feel like I'm bouncing off the walls, which is kind of nice actually sometimes. So yeah, bit of sunshine, bit of caffeine, energy levels are very good. And that is the topic of today's podcast is, do you need to sort out your energy levels? Because I work with a lot of clients, and when I speak to them when they first start, one of the things that stands out to me is that they are often really bloody busy. And just to be clear, because I know this comes up all the time when people kind of think about coaching and things like that, it's like, oh, maybe I'm just too busy right now. I'm too busy to start Sorted in Six or too busy to start one-to-one coaching. You'll always be busy. I feel like being an adult, the running joke is you tell yourself that next month is going to be quieter. Been telling myself that for like 13 years now, and it's not happened yet. So if it does, great, but I think for most of us it's just one thing into another, isn't it? That is just adult life, sadly. But one of the things that I think is so important is this energy management piece to it, because I will be working with someone really early on, and one of the things I notice is that their energy levels are just super low. They're just not feeling great for lots of different reasons. It could be because their sleep's crap. It could be because work stress is high. It could be because the kids are driving them mad. It could be because they're stretched really thin, trying to look after lots of different things. It could be that dieting is taking up a ton of mental energy. That's a really common place for clients to start with me. A lot of the time when they come to coaching, they're quite surprised that they feel like they're thinking about nutrition less, not more, after a few weeks. Once they're kind of settled into a good routine and we've got structure in place, they're like, this feels a lot easier now. I'm not constantly stressing about it. But it could be other elements of their health or fitness that they're stressing about too, of course, not just weight, or nutrition, but all these things factor in. And one of the trends that I see is people being so run down and in such a crappy place that when they sort of telling me that they've been struggling to make changes with their nutrition and their exercise, part of me, not that I would, because it sounds really mean, but it's like, no bloody wonder. Like, you sound so run down. Now, that doesn't immediately help, right? So what I do as a coach is I need to, it's great to observe that and say, look, it sounds like you're quite run down. We probably need to work on your energy. But how do we actually do that, right? How do we work on that? So I think the first place that you start is you kind of start by picking the version of you right now. And if you doubled down on the bad habits you have, how would that make you feel? So I'm just going to give you some examples of things that I have done or do that I maybe actively do less of now that help with my energy. So we're kind of reverse engineering this to make Cameron feel much, much worse. So here's a perfect example. I could spend loads and loads of time every day reading the news that, it's generally quite negative, right? Rather than check it once a day for 5-10 minutes, have a little bit of a browse through, I could read it loads and loads and loads and check in with it loads of times a day, and see what Big Donald's up to, all the rest of it, right? And that would probably make my mood worse progressively, right? It's fair to say that the inputs are probably not super positive overall. So that's like a tiny little habit. And the reason I actually touch on that one as a kind of a side note is that I noticed myself doing this in the COVID time. So I was an in-person trainer, so obviously was quite keen to get back into the gym. So I kind of moved fully online at that point, but obviously was looking to get back into the gym when it opened or reopened. And of course, like most of, I imagine the world, but everyone in lockdown, I was checking the news all the bloody time, which of course was a waste of time because all the lockdowns dragged on for far longer than we initially anticipated anyway. So you kind of thought maybe it'll be open next week, and you're checking for an update, and of course nothing came. And it was just same old shit, basically different day, right? And actually there's an element of here it's good to be up to date with things, but how helpful was that behavior? Well, actually I noticed that my mood was starting to drop, and that actually I was feeling a little bit more down and a bit more negative than usual. For someone who doesn't necessarily lean that way, I'm usually pretty upbeat. I absolutely love what I do. I'm pretty outdoorsy. Like, I do a lot of things that make me happy, even if I work a lot. Like, I'm pretty bouncy about kind of what I do in general. Like, I absolutely bloody love it. And day to day, I'm a pretty happy guy. So I consider myself quite lucky in that regard, but also some of it is an accident. And this is a great example of, like, I was noticing myself feel more and more negative, more and more run down, just a bit crappy about it. So just a one specific example, that's why I pop with the news. I think something most people can relate to some extent. Another habit would be like scrolling, or doom scrolling, which of course you can do with the news, but you can also do with social media as well. You can absolutely doom scroll yourself to being miserable. easier than ever. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, it can be really, really easy to get into that habit. So managing how much time we spend on those things hugely helps, and this is something I'm going to touch on again in a second. Another example, and this could, I guess, come from the doom scrolling, is staying up super, super late and then getting not enough sleep and feeling really run down. This is a super common one. Sometimes we need to have a bit of an honest conversation with ourselves and be like, okay, like most of us don't get to sleep as much as we would like. That's normal. Like it sounds great to say get 9 hours of sleep a night. My clients who are parents will be absolutely laughing at this. 9 hours, that's unimaginable, right? But sometimes there's an element of responsibility on us too. Like there are things we are failing to do. For example, you're doom scrolling and you go to bed at or you could go to bed at 10 or half 10 or 11, but you're actually going to bed at 12 or half 12, and then you're waking up at 6, and then you're struggling to stick to any of the habits because you felt super motivated on Sunday. Monday swings around, you're bloody knackered from the word go, and you're struggling to stick to any of your nutrition and gym habits. Well, no wonder you're getting absolutely no sleep. You're a bit like Buddy the Elf, getting his 40 minutes of sleep and then ready to go. Like it just doesn't work, right? So that's another factor. So we've painted a picture of, and I'll do a little bit more with this, Cameron who's feeling really run down. He's checking the news all the time. He's doom scrolling till late at night and doom scrolling rather a lot. He's getting very, very little sleep. His food choices are crap too, so he has lots and lots and lots of kind of like caffeine just to get him through the day because he's so knackered, and then he's also using lots of snacks to give him quick energy boosts. So he's having lots of bits of chocolate crisps, whatever's there, the office cakes, whatever's brought in, just anything, right, just to get through the day. So his energy levels are very, very variable. So we were talking about myself in third person. His energy levels are going to be really, really variable because he's not having structured meals that fill him up. There's very little fruit and veg. And then also the classic not being hydrated on top of that. So I'm not drinking enough water. And you start to paint this picture, right, of someone who's going to probably feel pretty run down. And then you start to throw in like, okay, the normal stuff that we maybe aren't in as much control of is like work stress is really high as well. But on top of work stress being really high, we don't really have a very good toolkit for dealing with stress, where we let ourselves get maybe more stressed out than we need to. Because I think that, and this is something that comes up with a lot of clients, is stress management is important. Like, yes, work can be stressful, but we can also learn to respond to that in a certain way. That isn't something that's 100% out of our control. Like, work is stressful. I work with clients that work in all sorts of different sectors, and some of those jobs you would probably look at and think, yeah, that would be a stressful job objectively, right? The hours are long, the pressure's high. Clients work in medical professions and services and things like that, where there is, a lot of genuine pressure in that moment, where bad things can happen if you don't make the right decisions. But the way we handle our stress around that is also important. So if I'm also that person who's got a stressful job but handles that stress pretty poorly too, and you start to combine all these factors, your energy levels are going to be, frankly, pretty shit, right? They're going to be pretty rubbish. And of course, what then happens is, when you try and implement a habit, so you want to get on top of your nutrition, you want to start to exercise more, no wonder you're struggling. And like exercise is a really common one where people will be like, I have no time. And it's like, that's like absolutely valid. Like a lot of people struggle with time, but then you look at your screen time and it's off the charts. Now, of course, what starts to happen is sometimes when we're really stressed at work and we're stressed at home and you're knackered because the kids are running you ragged, then you get home and then you just sit on your phone and doom scroll for a couple of hours because it's fairly numbing, and it's just a way that becomes a method of relaxing, but it's not actually that relaxing, right? Like you don't go into the news and feel like, I feel really relaxed in the way that you maybe do from getting some fresh air, or reading a book, or even just watching something you actually enjoy watching and that actually makes you feel a bit more positive. So I think when we start to look at energy management, and it is something that I've really checked with myself. I have a really good friend who often talks about this, and I think one of the reasons that he talks about it a lot, he's also self-employed, also a coach, and it's something I really picked up from him, and I can't take the credit for it in sort of in the initial phase at all of being something that I looked at, and I looked at it myself. So there's a selfishness to what I'm talking about, because this is something I've done and I find it hugely helpful. But he always talked about this as like, if you're self-employed, obviously, like if you want to, create a podcast, right? Someone's going to, on the other end, can hear whether I'm excited to do this as I am. I always look forward to it. Like I've got 5-6 podcasts and topics buzzing about that I want to talk about. Like it has a huge impact. My clients know if I go into their updates and I'm really energetic and looking forward to it and excited, right, which I always am. I always look forward to doing my one-to-one updates, always look forward to Sorted in 6, doing the live calls. Like I love doing this stuff. But I also don't take it for granted that that's the case, right? Yes, I have I guess, a natural enthusiasm for these topics and things I'm talking about. But there's also an element of I actually look after my energy levels. I don't expect myself to perform really, really well if my sleep is shocking all the time and I'm stressed out my mind all the time and I'm eating really poorly and I haven't seen, a glass of water for 6 hours and I'm wondering why my mood's a bit low and I'm feeling a bit tired. Yes, you can feel crappy from just not drinking enough. That is a thing. It absolutely is something I used to be bad for as well, not drinking enough water and then being like, oh, why is my energy levels terrible? And then I'd have a drink of water and be like, oh, I feel much better now. Shock horror. So I think we need to kind of be quite objective about the energy side of it. It isn't woo-woo and it isn't, a nice to have. We have a bit of a responsibility to ourselves. Gosh, I'm getting very tough love here, but we have a bit of a responsibility to ourselves to look after ourselves, right? No one else is going to do it for you. And you can feel a bit sorry for yourself when you are run down and stressed out, but you also have to sit back and say, okay, what have I done to make myself feel good today? And if the answer is bloody nothing, then no wonder you don't feel good, right? You wouldn't treat a pet that way, you wouldn't treat a kid that way, like they're going to eat meals at regular times, they're going to be well hydrated, hopefully, as well, all these kind of things. But if you're not doing that for yourself, well, hey, you're not going to feel great. And actually, when you start to look after your energy levels, then you tend to find that implementing change with your nutrition is easier. And of course, when you make a change with your nutrition, you have even more energy. And then you do a bit better with your strength training and you're more consistent. And suddenly you're feeling quite positive because, hey, your nutrition's pretty good. You've dropped a little bit of weight and your training's much better. So you're feeling a bit fitter. And unsurprisingly, that knocks onto your energy levels even more. But sometimes it starts with the basic stuff. It's like if you are very much that person who's like, I am so strapped for time right now. Look at the things that drain your time or drain your energy and start to kind of see if you can resolve any of them. So an example of this is like I was speaking to a client the other day who was just feeling absolutely overwhelmed and they were struggling a little bit more with their nutrition than normal and they've been smashing it for ages, but they're just going through a busy, stressful life phase. And one of the things I said to them, I was like, how organized have you been with your nutrition this week? And they're like, not at all, not at all. And I said, how much mental energy have you spent on that nutrition? Bloody loads. Like they're just like, I've been thinking about it all the time. I feel stressed out and it's kind of annoying me because I'm not on top of it. And it's like, okay, what do you think would take you less time? Spending 10 minutes making a plan, literally setting a timer and being like, right, I've got 10 minutes, like to hide from the kids where I'm just going to plan out meals for the week. And then with that, having the time to then go and do like a weekly food shop or do an order. And they're like, okay, well, that's probably going to take a lot less time than the loads of time that I'm sitting thinking about it all day and all that energy that goes into it. And we just implemented that one thing. We just kind of focused over a sort of 2-week period, really kind of focusing on getting organized, getting a good weekly food shopping again. They were kind of doing that classic cook once, eat twice thing. So they were chucking a portion in the freezer. So that was there for them as well. And they were saying how bloody handy it was because they were coming home pretty stressed and they could just defrost something and just chuck it out for everyone's dinner. But it was still a nice home cooked meal. So they still felt good about it. They're not relying on ready meals all the time. And even then we talked about just chucking a few ready meals in the fridge as well. So they have a bit of a backup, a practical backup of, okay, I'm really short on time today. I can make something sensible for myself that takes 4 minutes to do because they're often cooking more than one dinner just because of dietary needs in their family and stuff, right? So that made a huge difference. And suddenly they were like, oh, I feel a lot stressed about things. And it had a knock-on effect to other things because they're also less stressed, but they're also eating better. And because they're eating better, they feel a bit more energetic and it has a positive knock-on. So this is kind of where we want to start, is look at the things draining your time. And another one that comes up all the time, and we have all like hands up, like being guilty of this, certainly I have, where we do that thing of doom scrolling too late at night. You're on your phone in bed and you should be getting to sleep for 10:30, but you've been on your phone, it's super stimulating. And let's be honest, like what you're seeing online is broadly a highlight reel. Maybe not all the time, because I just put on my stories, so I pretty much concussed myself yesterday, which wasn't ideal. But the point is that broadly, it is a highlight reel. It's all the positives of everything someone's doing, the brilliant meals they're cooking, the nice things they've been doing at the weekend, what they went and did with the friends in the evening, right? So you're doing all that comparison right before bed, in a day that you probably feel like you've not done enough of whatever it is around family stuff, work stuff, whatever. And it just puts you in the wrong headspace, and it's also stealing some sleep away, which means when you wake up, you're bloody knackered. And I've spoken to a lot of clients about this, just having like a hard stop of being like, at this time I'm coming off my phone, and not letting them do that thing of like, oh, I'll just go on 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, and then an hour's passed, and you're like, what did I get from that? And that's something I always get people to kind of ask themselves is like, if you've got behaviors like that in there, ask yourself what you're getting from it. If you're someone who really genuinely enjoys just having like a 15-20 minute scroll, cool, do that, but cap it. Don't let yourself do it so it then steals time or energy from something else. And actually for a lot of people, even if they literally are, instead of going to bed at 11 o'clock, they go to bed at 20 to 11, or the phone's off for 20 to 11, like that makes a big difference. And the frame I use for this, because we don't really think of it this way, but let's say you're someone who gets up at 6:45 every single day, right? That's when you get up. If someone said to you, good news, you don't have to get up until 7:05 from now on. Like you get up 20 minutes later. So we say 15, bad maths, 20 minutes later. You'd be like, oh, that's brilliant. That'll make a bit of a difference. I feel like 20 minutes is like just enough time to feel a bit less tired, right? We'd probably see that as a pretty big positive. But what we don't see is that the same thing applies in reverse, as in when you go to bed. Because if you go to bed 20 minutes earlier, you probably feel, even if you normally wake up feeling knackered, you probably feel a little less knackered. If you tend to feel okay in the morning, you probably feel reasonably good, right? It's not enough to make a colossal difference in terms of like if you're going to be bouncing with energy, but trying to find an extra hour and a half of sleep a night is it's not feasible for most of us. It's pretty difficult, right? But actually maybe getting 20 minutes more is a pretty good place to start. And I've done this myself where I've been a bit stricter. I tend to go to bed reasonably early because I get up really early, so I tend to get up at 5 every day. And I like to make sure I try and get like 7.5 hours of sleep if I can. So I do try and go to bed at like a sensible time if I can. So it makes a big difference just to even get to bed 15-20 minutes earlier, and I notice it. So this is another kind of habit. So I talked a bit about the, I guess, doom scrolling and sleep. That's one of them. Other little things that I think people can implement that are hugely helpful are just like little momentum building energy boosters. So really easy wins you can give yourself. That might be the really classic thing of like, okay, if you look at your morning and you're someone who's like quite last minute to everything and you feel rushed and stressed, you're getting into work, you're a bit flustered, it feels like a stressful start to the day. That's also not a great way of managing your energy, right? So for a lot of clients, we've had conversations about this. It's like, well, why not get into that habit of, maybe getting to bed a tiny bit sharper and then getting out the door 5 minutes to 10 minutes earlier and actually reducing your stress levels down, because that can really steal energy. And I will admit that this is something I have been very guilty of. I'm very much someone who's like always bang on time, but I hate being late, which means that a lot of the time, if I do leave it that little bit later and cut it slightly fine, I kind of get a bit stressed about it, I get a bit annoyed about it. Now, I've definitely gotten better at not being stressed about things over time, but I equally think the best way of handling that is actually just to leave slightly earlier. Now that's, if you've got kids, please ignore this, because getting kids' shoes on and getting them out the door in the morning is a bloody nightmare, so this is a bit different. But little things like this help, right? Like genuinely, I speak to clients who don't have any kids or anything like that, and they're rushing out the door, flying out the door, and they're stressed from the minute they get on the bus to, I mean, I used to live in central Edinburgh, so you get into buses places, the bus is running bloody late, so it's 5 minutes late to arrive, even though it says it's due, then you get on it, then it's slow to go, then someone's asking directions, or, they get on the wrong bus, or whatever it is. I mean, it is Edinburgh, so it's always packed full of that kind of nonsense, and you get nowhere, and you feel stressed about it from the off. And actually, like, breaking out that behaviour, getting slightly earlier bus, being 10 minutes sharper, can make all the difference in the world. So that's just a very specific example, but we also want to look at things that steal energy or time aren't necessarily like just things that we do. It can be our mindset towards it. It can be our stress levels as well. So that can also help. Another example is like if you're someone who goes to the gym in the morning, this is such a boring cliche fitness thing to say, but genuinely put your clothes out the night before. I am so bad for this because I get up really, really early in the morning to go to the gym a lot of the time, and I'm always bad for doing this. I probably do it twice a week, and the other times I don't do it. Another twice a week I forget to do it, and it makes such a difference to not have to I'm trying to be really, really quiet, it's pitch black, and I'm trying to find the right clothes to take to the gym as well, which is never ideal because it's not great when you go through to the lounge and realise actually what you're wearing is probably not what you wanted to wear. It's not the right t-shirt because it's pitch black and you couldn't see it. The point is if you set your clothes out, again, it's a little stress reliever. It's another minor win that adds up, that sets you up right. So I think all these things can help, but there's some really basic things that we can do as well that I think make a bit of a difference. Things like getting to sleep 10-15 minutes earlier, huge difference. Being a bit more cautious with how much time we spend on our phones and how much comparison we're doing, and how, just even reflect on if you're kind of but I quite like doing that think about how it makes you feel. If you feel like, oh, do you know what, it doesn't bother me at all, I feel really good after coming off my phone, great. But I know for me that's not the case. If I spend too much time on my phone, I don't feel good for it, especially because I obviously spend a lot of time creating content and on social media. Like, there's a limit of how much I want to consume because it reduces my creativity. But so that's kind of another thing. And some other small wins, stuff like hydration as well. It's like, I'm sorry, but if you're having 500 mils by the time you wake up and you get home at 5 p.m. and you feel tired and grumpy and fed up at work, like, some of that might just be on you. Like, you're just really dehydrated. Like, that is not ideal for us at all. You don't need to be overhydrated and going to the toilet 5 times an hour, but you do need to drink enough water for it to like function as a human being, right? Like, this is not some sort of like test to see how long you can go without water. Like, it makes no sense. And actually, if you're not a water drinker, fine, like, have a cup of tea, have a fruit tea or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. But make sure you are hydrated, because the amount of clients that I come across that we kind of look at their intake and it is ridiculously low. Not even like low, it's just ridiculous. We look across the day and it's like, oh, I drink 600 mils, 700 mils a day, and it's like, okay, like, that's probably not brilliant for you. And it's also probably the reason that if you're in a warm office by 3 p.m, part of the kind of sort of afternoon slump is the fact you're so dehydrated that you just don't feel good anymore as well. So I think things like that can also factor in too. And then things like caffeine, I'm not against caffeine consumption at all. I think it has a lot of utility. Just remember that it shouldn't be the thing buoying your energy levels all the time. We all need a bit of caffeine now and then just to kind of get through after a pretty crappy sleep or a really busy day. And I'm the same. There'll be days that have a little bit more caffeine because I've got a long day, I'm working long hours. That's fine. But I still make sure that I'm looking after my energy levels elsewhere, and I try not to have any caffeine after 2 p.m. because it does have a bit of a knock-on effect. Because the half-life is relatively long, 4 to 5 hours, if you're having a lot of caffeine late in the day, it is likely to disrupt sleep. And sometimes people convince themselves it has no impact, and yes, over time you become desensitized to caffeine, but it's still probably not brilliant for you to be consuming lots of caffeine late in the day. So there's some things in there obviously to think about practically, but the overarching thought that I kind of want you to take from this is that you will be more successful when you can be more sort of positive and more energetic in all the things you do, right? So it's going to make it much easier if you start to look after your energy levels. And I really would, instead of be like, I'm going to do this, think about the 2 or 3 habits that take the most time and energy away from you. I think sometimes we kind of do this thing of adding things in, which if we're already busy and we're a bit overwhelmed, it can just swamp us. And actually, I think managing your energy levels is such a fundamental and helpful thing to do. Like, for me, getting out for a morning walk or going to the gym, because it's either one or the other. So there's a good habit there. It's just one thing or the other. So today it was just a walk in the morning because I battered my head off the ceiling yesterday. I'm still not feeling 100%, so I decided not to do an early morning gym session. I'm hoping to train this evening if I'm feeling a wee bit better. But the point is, I went out for a good walk. I got some sunshine, got a little bit of daylight, because thankfully it is, quite bright even at 6:30 in the morning now, which is quite nice. And it just means that I've set myself up really good, buzzing for the podcast, looking forward to cracking on, right? That's all great. If I hadn't done that, my energy would have been much worse, and I probably would have been less productive this morning and all the things I've done. So try to have that mindset of, what are the things that you are not doing or currently are doing that are having a really big detrimental effect? Is it the sprinting out the door and being really rushed and being disorganized in the morning and not having your gym clothes out? Is it the doom scrolling late at night and not getting enough sleep? Like, it's a lot of boring stuff, but a lot of the time, actually looking at these things makes you feel a lot more in control. And even if you pick one thing, if you're like, actually, do you know what? My screen time is ridiculous. Like, that is just not good. And we've all been there. I'm going to tone that down. I'm going to set that standard for 10 days where I'm going to make sure I manage that properly. I'm going to reduce it. And all of a sudden you feel like you have more time. And I noticed this when I dropped my screen time. I'm like, oh, I feel like I have more time. And that's from my coach who's on his phone a lot, replying to clients on Instagram. Like, even I can drop it down more than I think, because I can be really deliberate about when I use it. And all of a sudden I feel I have more time in the day. And I actually have time to get an extra little walk in, or be a bit more organized with food, or put my clothes out for the next day. All these small wins add up. So it's a good place to start. Anyway, I wanted to talk about that because it's a little bit of a topic I'm quite passionate about. As I said, my friend Peter, he's very much who I picked up on this from, and managing my own energy levels has made me far more productive, which is always good when you run a business, but also just made me happier too. And it's a serious kind of business that matters, right? If you're feeling happier, more relaxed and less stressed, well, that's something to look at. And for a lot of parents I coach, even helping them a little bit with energy levels has a huge knock-on effect, because they are, you know, in a lot of demand. They're stretched pretty thin. So something to kind of think about if you are struggling with your energy levels and you want to drop some weight and get a lot fitter, a lot stronger, and just feel really bloody good, then the link to one-to-one coaching is in the show notes, and I will speak to you soon.